Welcome back, everyone, to Toula's Tips for Caregiving. You know, today we've been talking about the importance of planning ahead. We've been talking a little bit about some of the documents that you need to be talking to your loved ones about, that you need to be aware of, where they are. There's some really important things that you need to be pulling out of that file drawer and going over with your loved ones that you're caring for. Let's talk about why it's so important, Robert. I bet you could tell some stories even of folks who didn't, and some of the resulting consequences, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, from a war story standpoint, that would be that's a different show, and I would love to do that one.
We'll do it.
It's actually probably even better over a beer, assuming you drink a beer. I don't know.
Sure.
But I can tell you that the why for the pre-planning, I mean, the first is economic. If you pre-plan and you go ahead and get things done in advance, you're not doing crisis planning. And crisis planning is the most expensive type of planning, not only from a psychological expense of what it's causing you, just your mind, body, soul, the whole 9 yards, but also just from an economic standpoint, because you're needing things so quickly, and a loved one may be to the point where they are ill and can't sign documents, and then the courts need to get involved, which only is going to double and triple sometimes, not just in cost but also in time. And
frustration.
Yes, I mean, just think about, we were going on with the courthouse recently where it was closed for a 3-week period because we were trying to get into this new wonderful courthouse, and it is a very nice courthouse. However, everybody was shut down for 3 weeks. Well, that doesn't mean people stop aging. It doesn't mean people stop getting sick. It doesn't mean people don't need guardianships or whatever.
Right.
But yet things, even though they're emergencies that could be handled, those things could not get done in a orderly fashion. And it really shut down a lot of people.
Put the brakes on a lot of stuff, didn't it?
And by not, but had you had documentation like a durable power that's a current power, or one that at least it's valid, healthcare surrogate designation that has HIPAA language in it so that you can get medical records, those types of documents in advance, at least it gives you a step ahead. And again, they can be done in a much more leisurely manner where there's not a lot of stress on the person having to sign.
You've got your wits about you, if you will. You're not stressed out. You can make intelligent decisions, informed decisions in a non-crisis situation.
Right.
We do have a caller on line 1. Mike, welcome to Toula's Tips for Caregivers. I'm sorry, he typed...
Sure. Well, I'm not a doctor, but what I can tell you is from a practical standpoint, dementia is like a big, I like pecans, so it's a big old pecan pie. You have this big terminology, it's referred to as dementia. Within dementia, a slice of dementia, or a category, subcategory of dementia, like a slice of pie, would be Alzheimer's. Now, Alzheimer's is very difficult during someone's lifetime to actually be able to diagnose. It gets diagnosed, and the term is sort of flippantly used, but the reality is that in my practice, we always call it the big bad D word. Whenever anyone has dementia, we know that that's usually going to have short-term memory loss associated with it, that there's going to be usually confusion, and there's going to be some potential incapacity attached to it. But the one thing to really remember that's very important, just because someone is diagnosed, it does not mean that, just from a practical standpoint, that does not mean that legally they can no longer sign documents or pre-plan, because medical competency or medical determinations of having somebody have a condition does not take away from a test of what is actually competency from a legal standpoint. Legal competency can still be there even though someone is diagnosed with a dementia or form of dementia such as Alzheimer's, which is a form of dementia. So hopefully that answers your question.
I didn't know that. That's good to know for that. Mike, you hung up awful quick. If you have a preference of a gift certificate, please call back and tell the producer, and he will take down your name and address, and I'll get them to you. Remember, listeners, my gift certificates today, I've got 2 to the Riverfront Cafe and 2 $500 gift certificates from Hardage Giddens, my main sponsor. Thank you, Hardage Giddens, for your own pre-planning or for those of your loved ones. Again, we're talking about the importance of planning ahead, and I will tell you, and I'm happy to tell you, that I have done my own pre-planning. I don't want my son to have to take care of me someday, so I've got my own long-term care insurance to take care of me. I'm not sure what the status of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security is going to be, and again, that's a whole other discussion for another show. But I've done that, and I've got my own funeral arrangements. I went ahead and took care of it myself because it's a hard thing to do when you've lost a loved one, and I don't want my son to have to do it. And I can't recommend Hardage Giddens highly enough. They were pleasant, they were easy to talk to, there was no high pressure sales, and I have the peace of knowing that this is done, and my son has that too. So,
Sure.
But anyway, back to some planning. What are some of the documents that we need to be asking those that we care for to hand to us so we can start looking at some of them?
Well, one of the things that you can do, and as the AARP has come out with an organization sort of chart, things simple enough as making sure you have a copy of of a loved one's Medicare card.
There you go.
Usually the Medicare number is going to be the Social Security number of the person with either an A or a B after it, but you'd be surprised how many times those numbers could be interchanged or interposed so that they are not exactly what you think they are, and you don't know where to find the number, and good luck calling Social Security and getting the number if you don't have it up front.
It's getting through.
Yeah, so
exactly.
Merely knowing that. Another thing that is very important is knowing where a person's assets are kept. It's not necessarily, different terminology we use, in our office about trying to help generalize sometimes a client situation, but usually someone is going to have money either in a bank, with a financial institution. Just knowing who to call, so that you can at least make sure that that person is being able, so you have a contact point
at the bank,
at the financial institution that may have their stocks or bonds or mutual funds or annuities. An insurance agent, like you said, there was long-term care insurance. Well, not everyone's going to know what a parent has bought.
Right.
It is amazing what happens when you get up at 3 in the morning and you see something on the air and you go and you buy something. I can't tell you how many times we found out clients had life insurance policies that we had no idea they had that were on automatic debit.
Wow.
But we only found that out after going through their documents, and the kids, of course, along with the clients, they were shocked. They didn't realize they bought that, but they woke up in the middle of the night, saw this ad, and thought, what a great idea.
The power of infomercials.
Yes, it is unbelievable. Marriage certificates, birth certificates are very important, and then if you're going to get, one thing that's just so underutilized, Toula, that just is not, I cannot stress enough, is veterans benefits.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, we're in Jacksonville. A number of people come here. If they're not retiring, some people have come here and they've moved here after serving our country. And there are certain benefits that you can get specifically that are not based on being disabled in the military, but just by being older
and needing help.
Exactly, and needing what is referred to as aid and attendance at home.
Right.
So to help keep you in the home longer, there are benefits referred to as aid and attendance or improved pension, as it's called. But to do that, you need your discharge papers, because you have to be at least honorably discharged.
Right.
And that's a very important part, because if you don't have your discharge papers, you find out about a famous fire in St. Louis where the medical records were, or all the discharge records were, which you don't want to have to find out. Your dates of service, because it's real important to find out if you served during a time or a period of war. Again, even though Vietnam may be called the Vietnam conflict, or the Korean War was the Korean conflict, the fact is those were wars, and those are available for people if they've served. And even though they've never, they could have been, you could be literally, as I've described to clients, peeling potatoes in Poughkeepsie. As long as you were in the military during that time period for at least 1 day,
you're eligible.
right, you can still be eligible for these benefits. So it's real important that you have those military records. If you don't, start getting them sooner, not later.
I love that we have so many great benefits for our veterans, and as a matter of fact, at least 2 times a year I have a show on veterans benefits. I just did around Memorial Day, and we will be having a special caregiver conference for families caring for a veteran September 14th at UNF. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we get back. This is Toula's Tips for Caregivers on Talk Radio 600 WBOB.